I would like to take some time to talk about rape and people's reaction to rape. I think that's something that's going to be rather important if people are going to be discussing this Alabama abortion law. I've seen a lot of people attempting to discuss it, and the thing that has struck me quite a bit in the discussions that I've had and the discussions I've overheard is that people don't seem to really understand very much about rape. I think we can all universally say that rape is bad. I think that's a safe thing to say. I don't think that's something that needs to be reiterated again and again. We all know it's bad. So there you go. Beyond that, I don't think people know very much about it. I've seen people arguing that rape could be prevented if we simply had more guns available to people. If every woman owned a gun, then nobody would ever get raped. And that's not true. That's not true. I mean, it would greatly reduce the number of rapes that would occur, and that would be wonderful. But even people who own guns occasionally get raped. It happens. I don't know if there is any surefire way to prevent all rape. Anybody can become a rape victim. Men, women, children, babies. Anybody can get raped. You want to reduce your risk factors as much as possible. I think it is wise advice to tell women, hey, don't get drunk and be wandering around on the street in the dark of the night in skimpy clothing, stuff like that. It's good life advice. You don't want to be raped. It's not a fun thing. So try to protect yourself. Try to keep the doors of your house locked at night. Try to, not be wearing provocative and promiscuous clothing while extremely intoxicated in places where you're not going to be in the company of friends who can keep an eye on you, when you're around men who might not be particularly kind or gracious, all that stuff, all of these things, all this wisdom that people give to you, it's not some sort of misogynistic down talk. It's warning you about this very real danger that exists in your world. Here's how you can help to prevent that danger from occurring. But unfortunately, I think there are a lot of people out there who think that if you just do these things, you won't ever have to worry about getting raped. And that's not true. Even if you dress conservatively, even if you are not overtly flirtatious with strange men, even if you don't drink alcohol or do drugs, even if you don't ingest anything in the company of strangers, you can still get raped. It's just an unfortunate reality of life that this horrible thing does occasionally occur. And in a large enough population sample, so the United States, it will occasionally occur. And it's horrible. And we're trying to understand it better. I think there are a lot of people, a lot of psychologists, a lot of social scientists, a lot of people out there, anybody in the criminal justice system, they're all trying to understand it better so that they can reduce the rate at which it occurs, because it's bad. Because there has been so much attention paid to it and so many people studying it, there are a few things that we know about it. Telling men just don't commit rape is not a very helpful solution. There are risk factors that make men more likely to commit rape. But just because a man has all these risk factors doesn't mean he's some sort of horrible, awful, evil guy who's going to go out and rape people. There are risk factors for everything. Just because you're statistically more likely to develop cancer, that doesn't mean that you're going to develop cancer. So I mean, it's difficult to pin down, and we're getting to understand better with the course of time, but we still don't have a very clear understanding of it. And we certainly don't have a clear enough understanding of it that we can just do a few things in our society and completely prevent it from happening. So this is going to be a problem for probably a while. We can't just magically stop it. Different people have different reactions to being raped. Different people have different reactions to trauma, different emotional and psychological reactions to any kind of trauma. People will have different reactions. And in cases of rape, people do have different reactions. And this is something that I've experienced firsthand with my own rape. I did not have the kind of reaction that people expect a rape victim to have to being raped. I thought it was very rude. And that was it. I went home and I was sore for 3 days. And I went and got myself tested for every STD I could think of, because I didn't know the guy and I didn't know if he was carrying anything. And if he was, I wanted to be diagnosed quickly so that I could treat it as quickly as possible. That was really the only anxious part of the whole process for me. Okay, I don't know if if I'm in the process of developing some sort of sexually transmitted infection. That was a little nerve-wracking. Other than that, that was it. I've had people get very angry at me because they think I'm lying about what happened to me, because I should be traumatized. I should be having all these emotions and all these feelings. And the first thing you learn about rape, one of the first things you learn, if you ever look up how to cope with rape, how a friend of yours who's been raped, how to help them, anything like that, they'll tell you different people have different reactions to rape. Different emotional reactions, different psychological reactions. Don't expect your friend or your relative or, don't expect you to have a certain type of reaction. And that's very good to know. Because you might end up having one of these traumatic experiences. Hopefully you don't, but if you do, it doesn't matter what you think you should feel. What you do feel is what you feel. And that's it. That's all there is to it. That's what you have to work with, and that's what you have to deal with. The feelings that you have, not the feelings you think you should have, the feelings that you have. And, hopefully if this does happen to you, you can go out and seek, a counselor or a psychological professional or someone who can get you through this process of healing from this traumatic experience and get the help you need. I should have gotten help, but I didn't have much access to it at the time. And it ended up being okay because it really didn't affect me. And there is a small portion of the population that it just doesn't affect very strongly. And I happen to be in that lucky proportion of the population. Rape varies in severity as well. I said that in my previous video. I'm saying it again. Someday someone is going to give me some sort of horrible character assassination because I dare to say that rape has varying degrees of severity. But it does. I've seen cases and examples of women who've had horrific things done to them, horrific and very violating things done to them. Myself, I was small, he was big, he sat on me. When I screamed, he covered my mouth. There you go, that was it. It was about as non-violent of a rape as a rape can possibly be. I was very, very lucky. And I realized I was very lucky, and I felt very lucky because even though it was a rape, it was quite a non-violent experience. He let me go when he was done. He finished with me and he let me go. Awesome, I guess, yeah, you got raped, but at least you're okay, at least he didn't, God, I've seen some really, really very graphic examples of, not everybody gets to survive being raped. At the very extreme end, it'll kill you. I mentioned the New Delhi bus rape in the last video. I don't want to get into too many gory details, but one of the woman's rapists pulled her intestines out. He just reached in and pulled them out. That's extraordinarily violent. That's extraordinarily gory. It's extraordinarily graphic. There is a spectrum, and I was extremely fortunate to fall into the most non-violent end of that spectrum. And then having fallen into that most non-violent end of the spectrum, I then had one of the least severe emotional reactions I think a person can possibly have to that rape. And I pretty much just walked away from it unscathed. That happens. So the reactions that people have to being raped are going to vary greatly. And people get angry at me because of my reaction and my lack of reaction. And I'm sure that people who have very severe reactions and, PTSD symptoms and a lot of these strong psychological problems that result from the trauma of being raped, I'm sure it's frustrating for them because they're probably looking at me and saying, why couldn't I just walk away from it like that girl did? And the truth is, it's a trauma. It's going to affect every individual differently, and the severity of it is probably going to play a significant role in how well it affects you or how poorly it affects you. Some of these things are really traumatic, and mine was just not very traumatic, and so I didn't have a very strong reaction. And maybe that same situation would be very traumatic for somebody who's never had any other trauma in their life, or maybe they've had too much other trauma in their life, and so then it's just some sort of horrible revisitation of things that they already have experienced. It's complicated. Basically, boil it all down, and the answer is it's very complicated, and not everybody reacts to trauma in the same way. That's the trauma of rape. What about a situation in which a woman is raped and then subsequently finds out that she has been impregnated by this rape? Is she going to react to that in a predictable way? She is not. She will not. She absolutely cannot react to that in a predictable way. Maybe a way that would be predictable for her. Maybe if she's got a pattern of behavior or a pattern of handling traumatic situations, and she handles this new trauma in a way that fits her pattern of behavior, then it's kind of predictable. But for all women, can you predict what all women or any given woman out of a random sampling is going to do, how they're going to react? You can't predict that. It's like attempting to predict how any random woman out of a random sampling of rape victims is going to react. No one is going to have exactly the same kind of reaction. They're going to probably react in keeping with the typical human reactions to trauma, but those reactions vary, and people have different degrees of reaction. And so, expecting every woman to react to finding out that she is pregnant as a result of rape in exactly the same cookie cutter way, it's not realistic. And so that's something people need to be aware of. You need to be aware that if a woman is raped, violently, horribly raped, and she finds out she's pregnant afterward because for whatever reasons the morning after pill that they gave her at the hospital failed, because I've seen these cases, I've looked at personal accounts of these cases, and she finds out she's pregnant and she looks at the pregnancy test in her hands right there and suddenly has this huge surge of protective maternal love for this child. That's understandable. That's acceptable. If that's how she feels, just go with it. If that's how you feel as a woman and you're in this situation, trust your gut. Just go with it. Okay? If you believe that this child is important to you and you have to protect this child because it's your baby, listen to that. Listen to that urge. Listen to that instinctive response. That's important that you follow that belief. And it's important that the people around you accept that about you and follow your belief. I think there have been too many occasions where a woman has gotten pregnant as a result of rape, and the people around her, the doctors, the nurses, family members, well-meaning people around her have told her, oh, honey, it's just a little pill. You'll lose the baby in no time. Just take the pill. I know you're scared, we'll help you. We'll make this go away. And maybe she's uncertain about what to do and she doesn't know what to do. And all these well-meaning people are telling her to just take the abortion pill, and she takes the pill. Don't pressure a woman to make that kind of a decision. That's not right. The right decision is what she believes at a fundamental level should be done. And if she believes at a fundamental level that she should keep this child and protect this child, let her. It's her baby. It's her baby. You know, enough horrible, terrible, awful things have happened to this poor woman. If she wants that baby, then let her have that baby. It's her baby. It's a precious life in this world that she feels a strong need to protect. That's very important. And that's, honestly, I would say that that is sacred. That she should have, I don't know why I'm getting emotional about this shit. Anyway, it's sacred that she should be accepted and allowed to keep her baby. On the flip side, if she does not have that reaction, if she looks at that positive pregnancy test in her hand and her immediate reaction is disgust and revulsion and anger, and honestly, I'm trying to think of a way to explain it that will make sense, as if she's been engaged in some sort of battle. There's this very primitive, warlike part of every human that might be awakened with the discovery that she's been impregnated by someone who did something horrible to her. You know, it is the duty of all women, and I really genuinely believe this. It is the duty of all women to select a partner with whom to bring life into the next generation with. It's their duty to find someone whose genes they believe should be passed on to the next step of the evolutionary chain. And that's I believe that is also a sacred duty of women. And I think in our culture, women very carelessly and casually disregard that duty. We have casual sex with multiple partners that we barely know, and it's a horrible thing. And technically we can prevent the violation of that sacred duty by wearing condoms and using the birth control pill and the morning after pill. But and I've done these things as well. You know, I'm not guiltless here, but really that duty is very important, and I think our society has disregarded it, and I think that's not a good thing at all. I believe that in order to respect that very sacred element of what it means to be a woman, it is important to give her the choice. When she finds out that she has been impregnated by a rape, despite the Plan B pill that they gave her at the hospital when she was all beat up and bleeding, despite all of that, if she finds out that she's still pregnant, and everybody, you know, and it's clearly documented, a police report has been filed, you know, let's do this fairly. If she finds out at that point, I believe that it is very important that she be given the freedom of choice in her mate selection. She couldn't choose who was going to have sex with her. That happened without her consent. It was taken away from her. However, the results of that sex should remain within her choice, you know, within her freedom to make a choice about. And a lot of people who are very pro-life will say that that's a terrible thing to say, but that choice cuts both ways. If that woman looks at the ultrasound of her new baby and says, "This is my baby," and she smiles at it and she loves it and she wants it, her choice should be respected. If she believes in this, her beliefs should be respected. I don't want to hear about people telling her that she should get an abortion because it's a rape baby. We are all, if you go far back enough in your family lineage, each and every one of us, more likely than not, the product of at least one rape. That's the history of humanity. Somewhere down the line in your family lineage, someone raped someone else, and that's how your ancestor got born. but we all understand that it's not a good thing. And human beings should be given as much freedom and liberty over their own lives and bodily autonomy as possible. That should not be recklessly or carelessly used. If a woman gets pregnant because she was just being promiscuous, or even if she was sleeping with her boyfriend and being responsible and her birth control simply failed, she still made the choice. She still made that very sacred choice of mate selection. In cases of rape, this choice has not been made. And this choice should be at least offered. I don't believe that every woman who has been raped should be subjected to a forced abortion. That's horrendous. That's horrendous. I believe, however, that it is equally horrendous to force every woman who has been raped and become pregnant as a result of that rape, however small that number of women might be, to force them to carry that baby to term. I believe that only continues the process that the rape began. It's an unpleasant process and a violating process. And unless the woman believes that this is something that she should do or can do or wishes to do, that process should be ended. I'm not saying that children born as the result of rape are somehow less valuable or that their lives somehow mean less. If their mother chose to continue that pregnancy, then she has made her mate selection. It wasn't a good choice. It wasn't an ideal choice. It wasn't a fun choice, but at least she's been given a choice, however limited that choice might be. And if she chooses to carry to term, then we should all respect her choice. And if she makes that choice and says, there is no way in hell that I am going to carry this baby to term, we need to be willing to accept that choice as well. That's all I have to say on that, really. I'll talk to you guys later.